Podcast. I'm your host, Veronica Cisneros, the podcast where we support high achieving women, working moms in navigating the complexities of marriage, motherhood, and their careers. Today, I'm joined by the incredible Jen Morse, a mom of two, entrepreneur, professional actor, and public speaker. She is the founder of Renegade Motherhood, a brand dedicated to empowering moms in business through community. Jen, it's a privilege to have you here to share your expertise on balancing business with the beautiful chaos of motherhood. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Veronica.
Absolutely. So, many of our listeners feel torn between the demands of motherhood and building their own business. How can they embrace both roles without feeling like they're failing in one?
I'm still waiting for my clone to arrive from
Girl,
Amazon.
listen, me
So
too. If I can, you know what? I figured this out. If I can have four, just four. I'm not asking for a lot. If I can have four, I'm good. I'm
yeah,
totally good. I'm
totally,
totally good.
totally. No. Yeah, I'm pretty candid that like it's an ever evolving journey. There are
Yes.
days where I'm like, I'm nailing it, and there are days where my kids are like, I never see you, you're not spending time with
Yeah.
me. And
Yeah.
and then, there are days where I'm just like, I can't do another Zoom call. I can't do another,
No.
social media post, right? So
Yep.
I think like, somebody once told me, a friend of mine who's also a business owner, this was a couple of years ago after my second was born in 2020. And I was just in like a postpartum fog, pandemic fog, things were feeling challenging. And she was like, you're in a season. She's like, and I was in that season and now I'm like out of that season, a different season,
Yeah.
but you're in a season. And it doesn't fix anything, necessarily, but it was just
Yeah.
like good. And so I think like if you're listening to this and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I have really young kids and I just don't have enough time. It's like you're in a season, and sometimes it's just like acknowledging that can really be a little bit of a
Yes.
relief instead of just like pushing up against it. But I am, something I've been talking a lot about lately is running your business and your life and your motherhood and all the things, but kind of specifically speaking to a business lens through like your main character energy. And for me, this has been a huge game changer just in the last year. I found that when I had my first daughter, she's 7.5 now. I kind of went through this, not kind of, I definitely did. I went through this sort of identity crisis of like, okay, I'm a business owner and I'm a mom and I have to sort of do some things differently because my schedule is not what it used to be. I can't
Yeah.
be, things that used to work really well for me were not going to fly in this new
Yep.
reality.
Yep.
But but what I also then did was I started to doubt all of my instincts with my business. And I started to think like, well, I have to change everything in my business now too. Everything needs to be automated. Everything needs to be online. Everything needs to be, 18 funnels and 45 lead magnets. And I have to be on
Yeah.
all the social and, and all the things. And so I thought, well, that's how I have to do this now, even though it was not what really made me happy in business. I have an acting background. I love public speaking. I love being together with people in person, not just through screens all the
Yeah.
time.
Me too.
But I kind of just pushed myself through this for the last, 5 or 6 years and got to a point where even though I had a business that was profitable and making money, I wasn't very happy doing it. And I had to
Yeah.
really have this like big reality check with myself of like, you know, most people don't start a business because they're like, I really want to be miserable.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
most of us start businesses, especially as moms, because we want something to be different. We want to be able to have this, elusive work-life balance. We want to be able to, create a legacy for our family. And so if we're doing things and we're sacrificing and doing all of that for the business, but then we're not building it in a way that aligns with us and aligns with our skills and strengths, it's setting us up for, I don't want to say failure, but it's setting us up to feel harder and not feel as fulfilling as I think
Yeah.
it can.
Yeah. No, I love that you said that. Um, because it's so true and it's something that a lot of us don't talk about. We don't talk about, we don't admit. I remember I recorded a high achieving women's podcast. Like it was just like a high achieving women's series. And we were talking about, it was laser focused on our struggles.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember hearing one of them saying that they were interviewing a whole bunch of, they were interviewing a whole bunch of people on their podcast. And in between podcasts episodes that she was recording, she was like having full blown anxiety attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And then like she only had like 3 minutes
Yeah.
for the anxiety attack because she had to go straight into recording again. And how it was that moment where she realized like, holy shit, like how am I trying to I'm like trying to time an anxiety attack, which is
Right. Right.
impossible.
Right.
But like realizing this is where I'm at right now. And so I love that, you said acknowledging you're in it,
Yeah.
acknowledging you're in it, even even providing you that space to process you being in it. Yeah,
Yeah. we
love it.
don't we don't do that. We just kind of, I think, go on autopilot and just like we'll just push through it. We'll push through it, and there comes a
Yep.
point where you're, unable to do that anymore.
Yeah. What's the biggest misconception about doing it all that you see holding moms back from success?
You can't. I mean, you can't do it all.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I'm in a season right now of outsourcing a lot, and it's
Yes.
it's hard to do. It's hard because it's like it still takes time for me to get the things together to
Mm-hmm.
outsource, and also know that it's probably not going to be done to the way that I would have done it, right?
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
um but I think once I really stepped back and I said, where are the areas that A, I shine, and B, I actually really enjoy putting my time and energy, then it was like, okay, then everything else, it's either don't do it or outsource it. And I know that's easier
Yeah.
said than done, because oftentimes if you're in the beginning stages of a business, there's a lot to do and usually not a lot
Mm-hmm.
of money to do it. So it
Mm-hmm.
is like, so for years I did all of it on my own.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it's like the first thing is just to identify what you actually don't need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And like I am someone who, I don't love social media. There are pieces about it I like, but I don't want to be posting on it every single day.
Yeah.
And so there's been a period of time where I just haven't really. I've shown up a little bit. I will share in my stories, because but mostly it's like, I'm asking people at some of the events, like, hey, if you post something, tag me, and then I just reshare their content. Because I just didn't have the energy, because I think for so long I was trying to do it all through social media, and it kind of burned me out. But because I'm not spending all this time on all this social media strategy and stuff, it's freeing me up to do the things I enjoy doing, like being guests
Yeah.
on podcasts and speaking. And I just did my first live summit, which was incredible. And I sold it out without hardly posting on social media, because I'm finding that for me, my message is conveyed better when I'm in front of people,
Mm-hmm.
or when they can hear my voice and not just like some reel where I'm pointing to things on the screen and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think part of it is like really figuring out, like, first of all, recognizing that you cannot be on every platform. You cannot, have every single bell and whistle in your business immediately. So it's figuring out, like, what is your first, goal? What is the definition of success? First of all, is that $1,000 a month? Is it, you're paying your rent? You want to have a team of 35 employees at some point. It's because they're very different, and everyone's definition of success is very different too. So it's really figuring out what that is for you. And then once you know that, you're going to be able to put together a more realistic plan of action, and
Mm-hmm.
realize that, like, okay, when it comes to social media, like, I'd rather run a Facebook group than be posting reels all day long. So maybe that's the path versus showing up on TikTok every single day. Or
Yeah.
maybe you really love doing short form video. And so, like, cool, then do that. But like, you don't have to be everywhere. You can't be everywhere. And I think the fastest path to burnout and to your business never really launching is when you're trying to do everything or be everywhere, and you're not
Yeah.
actually spending time on the things that actually bring in the money.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, because you're scattered and you don't have a clear path,
Right.
and I mean, I've been there, especially early on. And even with new projects, I find myself, okay, I could totally do this. I could do this. I can make this happen. I can make this happen. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like right now I'm in the period where I am laser focused on my practice. Where before I was like podcast, workshops, courses, practice will be fine. Somebody else will handle it. And I was spread so thin,
Yeah.
speaking events, like, and it's just like, okay, hold on, calm down.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what do you want right now? Like for these next 6 months, like what do you want to pay very, very close? What needs your most attention? And
Yeah.
what are you really doing? Why are you doing it? What provides you with life? And for me, it's my mission has always been to serve people. And I didn't have access to therapists. I definitely needed one as a kid. And so it was like, okay, well, then I'm going to focus on that. And so with my
Yeah.
marketing manager, with my assistants, it was like, this is all we're focusing on. I don't care about courses. I don't care about workshops, and the podcast is great. However, this is where I'm like fully lined up with. And I've noticed with me doing that, so much progress following it. It's
Yeah.
kind of like feeding a plant, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it takes, and that's the thing too, like, it takes consistency of doing something. I think there's so much noise out there when it comes to entrepreneurship and business of like,
Absolutely.
Get your first 6 figures in 3 months. And I just think it sets people up for this false idea of what the reality is. And if you're, and it's going to take longer if you are focused in 18 different things, and I think if you really were to sit down, and I had to do this when I was getting ready to outsource stuff, like make a list of all the different things I do in a week for my business. And there was a lot of stuff. 90% of that is not stuff I should be doing.
Exactly.
And so it's like, okay, I need to pare it down, or I need to figure out a roadmap to giving this to somebody else or other people. And so, and that's, it's not easy, easier said than done.
No.
It's very much a work in progress, but I am doing it, and it's liberating when you can start to get to the point of doing that. I mean, from like a motherhood perspective and home life and stuff, we are not the most like beautiful, immaculate, home. Like there are always going to be dishes in the sink.
Amen.
We had a friend of mine who's this amazing organizer, Mindy with Bold to Organized. She came in this summer and worked some miracles in our house, helping us get rid of a lot of stuff, helping create some better systems. And, like the pantry in our like laundry room, mud room is beautiful. And we've really like kept that working. My bathroom is like much
organized.
And so it's like 80%, like 70 to 80% we've stuck with, but I have 2 little kids and a business, and we both work from home. Like 30 to 40% of it is going to be a dumpster fire half the time. And I used to push up against that so much. And now I'm just kind of like, I'm not entertaining, the queen. Like it's fine. I'm just
and
like,
even if listen,
right.
There's going to be
Bring
dishes
your vacuum
there.
cleaner with you.
Exactly. Pretty please. If you have a problem with it, listen, I do not mind sharing this responsibility. So knock yourself out with the dishes if they bother you.
Exactly. And it's just like, I used to really hold on to that and attach a lot of self-worth to the house looking a certain way, but it's not a strength of mine. And I'm really kind of, I'll hit my limit every couple of weeks and we do a big, put stuff away and everything, but it's like, I can't have a perfect, immaculate home and do the more important things. And the more important things for me are my kids and my husband and my business. So yeah.
Have you ever personally faced self-doubt or burnout in your journey as an entrepreneur? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Like every day.
Yeah. I love how honest you are. I love this because we're like, I did that in the past. And I find myself, especially as a therapist, where it's like, no, I struggle with. There we go.
There you go. Okay.
Struggle with this. And it's not something I want to admit openly, but it's true. Like the other day I was on my way to work and it's like, well, shit, is this the way I want to live my life? Because right now we're in our busiest season and And then I go back to, okay, when I get home, I'm so intentional. It's like, all right, well, what things do I need to tweak? And I find that you're right. It is day to day. It is day
Yeah.
to day.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I mean, so yeah, I mean, I am in a constant like recovery process when it comes to people pleasing and self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And I find the more I'm upfront and vulnerable about that, the more I actually like my business grows, because I think it is, especially in the entrepreneurial and business space, we're not seeing that as much. I think there are some people in the more motherhood space, on social media and stuff who are doing a really good job, like keeping it real and talking about maternal mental health and anxiety and and everything.
Yeah.
But I think in the business space, we're so focused on, like money, which is important too. I'm not going to lie. And it's very important. And I'm big on talking about moms making more money, because I think we do really good things with the money. But it's like, if it's at the expense of everything else, then, what's not the point, but, so yeah, I mean, I definitely find I get burned out when I'm running a business in a way that is not aligning with me. So kind of what we were already talking about. So right now I'm feeling really good, because I'm really clear. I've totally let go of the stuff that I don't want to be doing anymore, which some of that has meant other businesses and things like that. I've completely pivoted, and I'm a big advocate for building the plane in the air. I talk a lot about this and to my community, but I think like so many times we think like, oh, I have this idea. Let me think about it for a year. Let me put, a whole business plan in place. Let me build the website. Let me make sure I have the business cards. I mean, I can't tell you how many times somebody has said, well, I want to come to one of your networking events, but I don't have business cards yet. I'm like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, please come to the event. Don't bring a business card. Like, do you have a name? Like you're fine, like it's all good. And I don't say that to make fun of people either. I've totally been that person too, of like, well, it's not quite ready yet. I can't hit publish. It's not perfect, but it hasn't even been a year yet, but last March, I had a whole other program that I had created that I had spent months and invested a lot of money in, that was all around my kind of former zone that I worked in was mostly like nutrition. So I had this whole background in postpartum health and nutrition, and I had this whole program. And meanwhile, I was also running this like regular meetup for moms in business. And I found that I was really enjoying, and I had so much resistance around the other stuff, but I kept telling myself, I've spent so much time and money and so many years building this audience, and I've had content that's been going viral about postpartum. So this is it, even though I was like, this isn't it. And I finally launched the program, had a few people join, was teaching a Zoom workshop. And the whole time I'm having this full body, like F no experience of like my entire being was like rejecting it. And I literally got off that call. I refunded the people who joined the program I had spent months creating. And I took down the website. And a week later, I was like, had an entirely new, web page up, and was running with the Moms in Business Networking group. And so it hasn't even been a year yet, and it has grown. And I just had a sold out summit for 70 people, and I didn't even have like an email list, 9 months ago. And so, but the reason I think it worked was like, I was in my element. I'm doing the things that people really are attracted to. And B, I wasn't like worrying about exactly how every single step was going to go. I was just like, do the things often enough that I love, be consistent, and, and bet on yourself. And that's really what I've done. And it hasn't been without imposter syndrome. It hasn't been without self-doubt. It hasn't been without like, oh my God, like worries, financial, scarcity mindset. But had I, that day in March said, okay, I'm going to take 4 months, I'm going to write out a business plan, I'm going to build out a whole, I'd still be sitting here beating my head against a wall, miserable. So, when we can embrace a little bit more of this, going to like an acting term, like improvisation kind of mindset of like kind of figuring it out where we go, instead of having to know where we, instead of having to like know the future,
Yeah.
It, I think, really allows people to actually make things happen a lot faster.
Absolutely.
Or figure out faster that it's not the right thing, and then be able to, kind of make the next step. But this very kind of masculine, patriarchal business sense of like having to have plans for everything is, I think, holding back a lot of, especially moms in business who don't have a lot of time, but have a really good idea and have a lot of creativity and just need to go.
So make it. Yeah. I was on a phone call with one of my best friends yesterday, and she's like, I'm thinking about starting a business, but I need to, who's your website person? Who's this? And I was like, whoa. What do you need? And then she's like, well, I want to buy the domain name. She's like, but I know I need a website. And I was like, girl, just buy the domain name.
I own like 20 domain names. Yeah.
Just buy the domain name. Just buy the domain name. And I was like, when are you looking at launching? And she's like, well, I'm looking at launching in a year. And it's like, all right, awesome. So we have a year. Cool. Buy the domain name. For right now, though, what are the things you need to start putting in place? Let's start talking about it. Let's start making this real, really real. And, we started talking about it, and she started getting excited, and it's like, yeah, just buy the damn name. Well, the website will happen. For a long time for my practice, I remember I started working with a mastermind coach. That's also a group private practice owner. And I remember like going through the interview process with him, or the application process with him. And he's like, you don't even have a website? And I was like, no. And he's like, he was so amazed that my business was where it was at without a website. He's like, do you have an email list? And I'm like, what is that? Like, why do I? Sure.
I still don't have much of an email list.
Right? I'm like, sure. And he started like just asking me these questions, and he's like, he goes, because I guess I was applying for a smaller group than the actual group that I was actually qualified for. I didn't know. Listen, I just want to be a part of your group. Can I hang?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was now looking back, you're right. Like whatever it is you want, just start. Like start right now. Start right now. Like had you not started the process because you didn't have business cards, websites, email lists, you wouldn't have served as many people as you have served.
Definitely. And there's people now who are part of this community and have become really good friends. And they're like, yeah, I came to my first meeting, like, in June. And I was like, I've only known you since June, it's just like one of those things where it's like when you're doing it and it's working and stuff, like it starts to feel like it's actually been longer, you kind of trick your brain into like, oh yeah, like this is really working, and I step back, and I literally just this morning had a Facebook memory pop up, and it's actually perfect timing. And it was like story memories, as I share, like, oh, you're from your stories a year ago. And I was talking about this program I was launching in 2024. Yeah. And it was the postpartum one that I since was like, this isn't it. So I screenshotted it as like a little reminder to myself to be like, look what you did. Like in less than a year, you completely, like you followed your instincts, you followed your heart, and it's been okay. It's like, it's worked out, and I don't know what's going to come tomorrow, and I don't know what's going to come next year.
No clue.
But like, I'm going to just keep like remaining in this like main character energy and like doing what feels good and betting on myself and trusting that it's going to be okay if I, don't try to like figure everything out, and solve for every single like worst case scenario. So
yeah, you've built Renegade Motherhood. Tell me about that. Tell me about, what is Renegade Motherhood?
So it's a brand, and really my personal mission to elevate and amplify moms in business. And so it started out as, like a post in a Facebook group coming out of COVID. And I was like, hey, I've been a part of professional networking groups for years and years and years, and they've been pivotal to my success as an entrepreneur in many capacities. But I found that after I had my first daughter, it was harder to go to some of these kind of mainstays that I've been a part of, because they were early mornings and they were every week. And I was, once you have kids, it's just a different schedule.
Totally life. Yep.
So coming out of COVID, I was just really finding that I wanted to connect again in person with people. And I really wanted to connect with other moms, but have a different kind of conversation. Like, yeah, if we need to talk about kids and stuff, cool. But also like if a couple moms are there and they're breastfeeding their babies and we're talking about like marketing and branding and like, you know, visibility, like awesome. That was really what I was like looking to create. So now we have 4 locations, 3 in Colorado, 1 in Phoenix that we just launched. And in 2025, it'll really be about kind of opening up some other markets throughout the country and other meetings. And then we also have an online community, and Renegade Motherhood All Access, where you can go to all the live events too, but we also do a lot of online events so that if you're not in a location necessarily where there's a live event happening, or you can't get to live things all the time, we do workshops, we bring in guest experts, we have a lot of, I call it mother minding, where we come together and we just crowdsource and we get feedback from people and we brainstorm. I think the hardest part about being a solopreneur is when you're like, I just need to like brain dump with somebody for 10 minutes and just like have them reflect back. And my husband is not typically the person for that.
Probably not.
He's very good at certain
Probably
things,
not.
but so we do a lot of that. And it's been really exciting. Yeah. It's been awesome.
Why would you say connection is so essential for moms in business? And you mentioned right now about like being able to exchange ideas or being able to just kind of brain dump. Why is that so beneficial for moms altogether?
Motherhood is so isolating to begin with.
Yes.
And now more and more, because we, it's just the family unit's different. We don't necessarily live like, right next door to like our parents and, or, in my case, I'm kind of in this sandwich generation where I have young kids, but aging parents. So I think it can feel very isolating. And then you partner that with, again, this sort of isolation of being a business owner. And you're also kind of in charge in both arenas. So, you're a parent, so you have a ton of responsibility. As a business owner, you have a ton of responsibility, and you can feel very like, I just need someone to like see me for who I am right in this moment.
Yes.
And so
and understand.
I tell people, and understand. And even if we don't have the exact same business, to like have a sense of like, I understand the season that you're in right now. Like, even if my kids are older than yours are now or whatever, it's just common. It's a common language. And the thing that people tell me all the time is that they feel like they always are just welcome to come as they are. So we have moms who come and they're wearing their babies. We have moms who come and they're like put together because they're like, this is the first time I've left my office all week and I want to like throw some clothes on. And then there's moms who comes in their yoga pants and trainers who come right from clients. And it's a very like, come as you are, come as it feels good. And it's a sorry-free zone. So if you come late, cool. You don't need to apologize. We spend so much time apologizing for shit as women and moms. And so, so I think it deepens the relationships faster too, because we have this sort of commonality. And it's a really beautiful thing. I mean, you put a bunch of moms in a room together and like magic happens. And then when you like sprinkle in this like entrepreneurial energy as well, it's like
whole different level.
It's mind blowing. Yeah.
Building a support network is crucial, but many moms feel isolated. What's your advice for creating meaningful connections with other moms in business?
I think it's being yourself. I think sometimes when we go to networking events or we get on Zooms or we get on podcast interviews, you kind of almost default into this like, oh, I want this person to really like me. Not everyone's going to like me. I'm okay with that now. I think for a long time, I really struggled with that, having an acting background that's all about auditioning and approval. And it's like, and so much rejection. It just really like breeds this sort of like, please like me, please cast me, please want me, And now I'm just kind of like, I'm not right for every role. I don't know what your vision is. If I fit your vision and you want to cast me, awesome. If you don't, that's okay. It's okay. I don't take it personally anymore. And because we all have bad days, and there are auditions that I've totally tanked, and then and the same thing, there's, we go to a networking group and we're like, oh, I was kind of off today. My energy was weird. or the group was weird, I don't want to go back to that. And then sometimes we go in and we're like having the worst morning and we spill coffee over ourselves, and we show up and we are in it, and we're just like, I'm kind of a mess today. And someone else is like, oh, hey, I'm a mess too. Like, let's connect, But it's like, if we're constantly trying to impress everybody, if we're constantly trying to be someone we're not, like, people, even if they can't put a name to it, people know that, they sense that, like, oh, this person is trying too hard, or this person's being cagey or whatever. And so it's like, it's just, I think the key to like building relationships is to be authentic. And you're also not going to build a relationship with every person you meet. If there's going to be people that you're like, they're not the right person for my, that's okay. And I think like the more we can just be like, it's okay. We don't have to become best buddies with every single person. There's value in every conversation we can have, for sure, but letting go of the need to, like, manufacture relationships, and know that like you can be you and it's safe to be you.
You bring up a good point with being transparent and being authentically you. One thing I find, like, even right now, as you were sharing, Jen, a lot of the things you're sharing, it's like, I can 1,000% relate. And I have no idea how old your kids are. I can 1,000% relate. Like, as you were describing your journey, I had a similar one. And so from my experience, really surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals. You guys are probably going to have different levels of education, different levels of creativity, maybe even different, different lifestyles, with parenting and what have you. But at the end of the day, I know with the majority of the women that I interview, there's this commonality, there's this sense of familiarity. Like, we understand each other's pain. Like, I don't need to tell you what my journey was like, from being a solo practice to now group practice. The minute maybe even I say that, you probably already have an idea of like the sleepless nights, that the constant imposter syndrome, the being scared and making decisions anyway, and doing it with so much doubt and so much imposter syndrome that, maybe times I couldn't breathe, right? Like, we understand that pain. And a lot of us tend to feel like other people are so busy, like they don't have time for us. And you might be true. That might be true, right? If I pick up if I pick up my phone, more than likely, maybe 1 out of my 5 friends, or however many friends will answer, because maybe they're in session, maybe they're with a patient, maybe they're with a client, whatever's going on. But I love what you're building, because it provides this space for women to just come as you are. Like, literally come late, come with your kid, right? Like, we're all gonna grow together. We're all gonna thrive together. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been so much fun, and I'm so excited to see like what's coming next. So
You talk about the formula of passion, consistency, community, and timing. Can you break that down for us and explain why it's so powerful for moms in business?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, if you have an idea, right? And that's the thing. It's like, it starts with an idea or a spark. You don't have to have a full business plan to start, like we talked about. But you do need to have like the passion, and then you need to have the consistency around like, what's that first thing that you're going to do? And it might be, this is a really new idea and I'm not really sure what it is yet, but I'm going to start going to a networking group, on a regular basis, to surround myself with some people, because there's probably some people here who can help make this journey easier for me. And so you gotta go, right?
1,000% go.
Yeah. And so the passion, consistency, I'm like, what's the third one? Passion, consistency.
Let me go.
What's my formula, Veronica? I'm totally like blinking. See,
I will find
like
it.
Anybody can.
Elizabeth, we're gonna pause here. It's okay. It's okay. Elizabeth, we're gonna pause here. Let's go. I don't know where to find your. Let me go here. Elizabeth,
you just asked a question. Passion, consistency. Oh my God.
Oh, it's my question.
Yeah, it was your question.
Oh, okay,
but it was
all right.
based on my intake,
Your
and I'm
feedback.
just totally
okay. Here we go. So we're going to start back with it's passion, consistency, community, and timing.
Community. Oh my God.
It's okay.
Community.
All right.
Okay.
And tell me when we want to go back. All right. Perfect. Elizabeth, we are back. So we're going to stop right before we fumbled a little bit and go.
So yeah, so it's, passion, consistency, because you want to be doing consistent things to like cultivate this spark. So it doesn't fade away as quickly as it sparks.
Show up.
Exactly. And then, I mean, I think that parlays beautifully into community, because I think, and we've talked a lot about this on this call, but when you have an idea, whether it's a really, really baby idea or something that's been fully birthed, right? It's like, you need to surround yourself with people who understand what it is you're trying to do. And I think sometimes, I talk about this a lot, we go to our parents or we go to our spouse or whatever, and they love us, but they don't necessarily know what it is we're trying to do. They might be like, well, but you're so good at this. Like, why don't you just go back into the job force and get a job doing teaching or whatever it is you used to do? Why do you want to start a business now, right? And so they're well-intentioned, but they're not necessarily understanding what we're trying to do. So you want to build a community of other people who are in a similar stage as you. They might be building completely different businesses, but it's a common context. And then timing. If you've ever read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, the whole premise is it's a beautiful book. It's a great book, but the whole premise is basically like, there's a big idea out there and it comes to you. And if you don't, it's yours to run with, but if you don't do it, eventually it'll go find somebody else. And so it's that idea that like, we've had that idea and then we're like, and then we don't do anything with it. And then we see that it's like a product on Instagram, a couple of years later. And we're like, oh, remember when we talked about creating that thing? Like now they did it. Right. And so it's like the timing is never perfect. It is never the right time to start a business. Yeah. It is never the right time to have kids. It is never, I just don't believe that there's like this whole timing is perfect. I mean, the timing is like what it is. But when you get that like proverbial tap, that gut punch, that instinct, that idea, that spark, whether it's to add another layer to your business, whether it's to start a business, whether it's to totally pivot, like I had like a literal like a whack in the head, like not to ignore that, even if like there are so many reasons not to do it, to know that there is a reason that you are getting that big, that sign at that time. And it's worth exploring. Yes. So
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. So for a mom listening today who feels stuck, what's the first small step she can take to move closer to her goals?
I'm going to go back to community on this one. Yeah. I think like when you're feeling stuck, it typically means you need to like kind of shake up your environment and get out of like maybe your routines a little bit. And so I would say, plugging into people. For me, that's always what it is. And that could be going to a networking event. It could be joining a new fitness class. It could be, I joined a choir, a women's chorus a couple of years ago because I was really missing having a creative outlet. And just showing up once a week, singing, making music with awesome humans. It does so much for my mental health, which helps me feel more release and less stuck. So I think like when we're feeling stuck, when we're feeling resistance, it's a great signal to go out and like be with some people. And that, again, doesn't have to be in a business sense. It doesn't mean you have to go take a seminar or something like that. It could mean therapy. It could mean, but getting out of maybe like your normal habits, shaking things up a little bit. And when you can do that, I think with fun people, it's just like a win-win.
Jen, your work with Renegade Motherhood is so inspiring. Do you have any resources, freebies, workshops you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, definitely. So I have a quiz that you can take that helps you actually figure out what your main character persona is. And they're all based on famous TV parents. So it's kind of fun too. And you can take the quiz and you get a whole series of stuff that gives you more information about, your type, and then ways you can use that to build your sort of proverbial stage and how to be networking strategically. So you can definitely grab that. If you are in an area where we have meetings, would love to have you come and check one out. And then we also do things online too. And everything is at renegademotherhood.com. And as I look to, continue to grow throughout the country too, I am going to be putting out a program where you can start, kind of a chapter, Renegade Motherhood chapter, and be trained in everything in your area. So putting that out there, because I don't totally know exactly what that looks like.
We're doing
it. Building the plane in the air, right? I know it's coming. And so I'm like, you know what, might as well talk about it, because there might be some amazing listener you have who's like, I do. So just you can send me a message to the website, or maybe by the time you go to the website, there'll be a page there. It's kind of coming up on my to-do list, but really, I think this is more than a business. To me, this is a movement and a mission, and you can't do a movement without other people. So
no, you really can't. How can we follow you on social media?
Yeah, so on social, mostly I'm on Instagram at It's Jen Morris and at renegade.motherhood. And then I also do have a free Facebook group that's open to moms in business throughout the country, and we can list that in the show notes. But that's a fun place to kind of just get resources and connect with other moms who are doing awesome things throughout the country.
Jen, you are absolutely amazing. I love what you're doing. I absolutely love what you're doing. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. You have an amazing show. I was very honored to be asked. So I appreciate everything you're doing to have these conversations, Veronica.
Absolutely. Yay! We did it. We did it.
What's my formula? Passion, consistency. I was like, truly, like, I cannot even think of like the word. It was, of course, the most obvious one.